Will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. What do we do here? We report the news. We report it honestly. We report it fairly. It's what we do. And we also make commentary. That is not news. That is essentially just opinion. My opinion, your opinion. By the way, we also analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. And we do so for very important reasons, because fact and bias sometimes don't exist in American journalism. Don't ask me what I was thinking just then. I was working on a couple of different things. Things sounded a little strange in here, and I just realized what was going on. And I fixed it. This is the Wells Report. Did I mention news and analysis? I probably should have. But like I said, I was distracted by a couple of things that were going on. For example, I don't know why that song played. You didn't hear it, but I did. Welcome to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. And yesterday, the Durham report, for all intents and purposes, became public. And what I am fascinated by the reaction to it. The mainstream media had a big part to play in the Trump-Russia hoax. And by the way, it was a hoax. And the Durham report proves it. And this is not just me saying so. What it says is that the United States FBI and the United States Department of Justice used their laws, use the laws they are charged to administrate and to enforce as political weapons against Donald Trump. It was beyond awful. It is beyond awful. It is what countries lesser than the United States do on a regular basis. And it's so bad. You're asking me, okay, John, how bad is it? It is so bad that this morning in USA Today, on the front page of the website, is a columnist. And she has written a piece. Her name is Ingrid Jacques. And she's written a piece. The headline leads, "Trump was right. Russian collusion was a hoax." That's on USA Today. And as I said, USA Today and the rest of the mainstream media have huge accounting to do. Reconciliation. They have a great deal of work to rehabilitate themselves. And I don't know whether USA Today is giving us an anomaly or whether they're actually trying to come to terms with the fact that they've been lying to the American people along with the rest of the mainstream media. I don't know which is which. So let's spend a little bit of time with Ingrid Jacques' very good column on just exactly what's going on with regards to Donald Trump, the Durham report, and the FBI. After 4 years, we finally have the full 316-page report from Justice Department Special Counsel John Durham. And it's a damning indictment of some of our country's leading institutions. Durham said the FBI should have never launched an investigation into alleged Russian collusion with Donald Trump's 2016 campaign, given the slim evidence. That is a huge win for Donald Trump, who has for years called out his unfair treatment by the FBI and the media, all too willing to find blame in the former president's actions. The investigation into, quote, collusion, unquote, clouded Trump's entire presidency. The Democrats harassed the tale to paint Trump as an illegitimate president. Absolutely true. The real-life implication is that some Trump supporters see the Durham report as a reason to believe the former president's outrageous claims, including that the 2020 election was stolen. So she started out well, but then had to toe the corporate line. But let's look at it this way. We actually got 3 paragraphs of truth before the real-life implication is that some Trump supporters will see the Durham report as a reason to believe the former president's outrageous claims. You know, they didn't call them lies this time. Did you notice? Outrageous claims, not lies. This is the analysis part. We already know the USA Today is biased, but they're attempting to tell the truth, probably more to rehab their image than to actually change policy. It's marketing as opposed to genuine change. Genuine change of editorial policy to stick to the facts, no matter where they lead. USA Today doesn't do that. And once again, the fascism surrounding American media, in other words, those who are, say, for example, possessors of a different opinion, those people are ostracized. They're shunned. They're disgraced. And in some cases lose their jobs. Tucker Carlson. And so these people have to be careful. So I see why Ingrid Jacques put that paragraph in there. She's trying to keep her job. She continues, Durham slammed the FBI investigation dubbed Crossfire Hurricane because somebody at the FBI was having some sort of dramatic delusion of stupidity. Crossfire Hurricane. Jeez Louise. Crossfire Hurricane. What are these guys up there at the FBI? They're children or something? Okay, naming an FBI investigation after a fragment of a lyric in a Rolling Stone song? You've got to be kidding me. What a bunch of morons. God, that of all the things that happened in that's probably what upset me the most. We're going to call it Crossfire Hurricane. Why? Because you used to be a B-movie director in Hollywood before you became an FBI agent? Durham slammed the FBI investigation dubbed Crossfire Hurricane into the Trump campaign for its serious lack of analytical rigor, cavalier attitude for accuracy. Quote, we conclude the department and the FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law in connection with certain events and activities described in this report. Yesterday, I translated that for you. I can do it again. We conclude the department and the FBI broke the law in certain events and actions they took. That's what that says. Now, why Durham is being so careful? I don't know. I don't have any idea. There's this lingering mist of existential demise for people that go too close to the truth in these United States right now. Or is that just my paranoia talking? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Is John Durham being careful in this because he's worried about maybe having a sudden heart attack? Being hit by a drunk driver? Mistaking a pill and finding out that it's fentanyl? Is that what he's worried about? Is that what this... I mean, I'm continuing to read this column by Ingrid Jacques, and right in the middle of it, the fourth paragraph, She throws this thing. The problem with all of this is the fact that while President Trump was vindicated, it might cause his supporters to actually believe his outrageous claims, which, by the way, 2 weeks ago would be called outright lies. But USA Today realizes they're in trouble. CNN realized it about a year ago. Now USA Today is beginning to realize they have problems. They do. MSNBC is going to go down with the ship. They're suicidal. And all the rest, I don't know what they're going to do. They're just going to continue to publish their pitiful little rags, hoping that enough people buy them to keep the doors open. But what you're watching right now is the new media. You're watching new journalism right this minute. And this is something that has to happen. The cleansing of the First Amendment freedom of the press, not to some sort of ideological idea because that's more dirt, but toward the light of fact, toward the comfort of reality. All news doesn't have to be good news. There are horrifying things. There are uplifting things. But at the very basis of all of those things that we see in the news, if you can believe it, is the comfort that you are witnessing fact. And that's not what we have right now. We don't have any idea where the next crazy thing is going to come from that's going to occupy our times and our lives and give us acid indigestion. We have no idea when that's coming. We have no idea what direction it's coming. Let me ask you a question. Even 5 years ago, would you expect to have to hear about some sort of food fight surrounding elementary school kids being shown a drag show live in their school gymnasium auditorium? Even 5 years ago? No. You wouldn't have thought of it at all. But now, where are we? We don't know what's coming next. We don't know which direction it's coming. Some idiot in Washington, D.C. mouthed the words, "Your gas stove is dangerous." What? What do you mean your gas stove is dangerous? Your gasoline-burning car is going to kill the planet. What? And all this garbage comes at us and bombards us. President Trump colluded with the Russians in order to win the 2016 election. We've been spying. We've been surveilling. We've been watching what's going on in the Trump campaign. And we're disturbed by what might happen. Yeah. And now, USA Today, being very careful, reporting that John Durham is being very careful. Why is he being very careful? The same kind of fascism that keeps Ingrid Jacques of USA Today from being able to write a very clean paper on the idea that Trump was right. He was vindicated by the Durham report. Somewhere right in the middle of that says, well, you know, the problem with this is that his supporters might actually believe his outrageous claims. Is she worried about losing her job? Is John Durham worried about losing his life? Do you believe, right now in your heart of hearts, do you believe that it is possible for the current government of the United States, or any other government of the United States, for example, do you honestly believe it's possible that the government might turn its eyes on you and take you out for opposing what's been going on loudly enough? Do you suppose that John Durham is concerned about that at all? Or I'm just enjoying the weird feel of a black helicopter flying around in my pants right now? This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. There's a chat room going on for Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Don't ask me why YouTube put us back on the air. They censored this broadcast. And I finally decided to stop playing nice, and I started calling things the way I call things, and suddenly I was back on the air at YouTube. Maybe somebody finally figured out what I was trying to say and what I am trying to say. I'm not interested in playing politics. I'm interested in reporting what's going on in our country. More about this column from USA Today and Ingrid Jock in just a couple of moments. But right now, what I want to do is I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you about what's going on the chat room. So here we go. Gary says, it seems like the mainstream media is attempting damage control. Some of the mainstream media is. Some of it is. We'll know that the mainstream media really is interested in telling us the truth when the New York Times gives back its Pulitzer Prizes for the reporting on the Mueller investigation. And someone else says that all roads lead back to President Obama. Maybe. But that could be the strange sound of black helicopters flying around in your underwear right now. Anhoy Guzman asks a very good question. And JD, why the appendix, why was the appendix considered to be confidential and cannot be released? Very good question. Here's the answer. There's a thing in intelligence gathering or gathering evidence, et cetera, called sources and methods. Sources and methods. People have a pretty good idea based on the notes they take and the transcripts of meetings and so on and so forth. They have a pretty good idea what's said at almost any real official meeting. So, if, say, for example, there's someone sitting in an official meeting, a transcript is being taken, and then all of a sudden parts of that meeting are suddenly appearing, say, for example, in a news source, then it's possible to discern who in that meeting was talking to the news source, sources, and methods. It's also possible that, say, for example, there's nobody in the meeting that would ever talk to a news source. And yet the information gets out of the room. Then what could that be? Well, that could be methods. In other words, the room is bugged. Now, that doesn't happen very often because usually the news sources have to do it. And if anybody's going to spy on you, it's going to be the NSA. And you know, the funny thing about the NSA spying on you, boy, I sure hope the NSA isn't watching me right now. You carry around your own bug. You do it every day. Oh, your car does the same thing. Yeah, we live in a surveillance society. So much for the Fourth Amendment. Anyway, but that's why. Sources and methods. And yes, they have to be protected. They do have to be protected because you need these reports coming out. You need these reports coming out. Let's see. Mike Renwee says, good morning, y'all. Mr. Love says, the Mueller report, Trump actively sought Russian assistance. That's a political lie. And you're taken in by it. It's shocking, actually, when you consider the entire Mueller report's been debunked. Let's see. I would be concerned. Mueller report is much longer, but worth the read in comparison to when you consider one report actually investigated and interviewed everyone listed in both reports and one did not. Correct. The Mueller report was a shambles. YouTube is for general information. Rumble is more for political discussion these days. I'm reporting on politics. I'm not playing it. Let's see. Don Jr. met with Russian operatives to get the dirt on Hillary. Yeah, sure. Okay, whatever. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast today. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. A startling column on the front page of USA Today. Ingrid Jacques has written it. And aside from one fascist-induced blemish, this is a brilliant piece. Go to USA Today and check it out. The fourth paragraph is simply Ingrid trying to keep her bona fides as a journalist, quote unquote, whatever that means these days, intact. It's just a statement that says the real problem with the fact that the Durham report slams the FBI, justifiably so, and exonerates President Trump is that now people might actually think that President Trump's outrageous claims are true. Right in the middle of it. It's like looking at it's like looking at the Mona Lisa with a pimple right here, the big whitehead right there. It's ridiculous. This column, by the way, says a lot of things that you need to hear. This is Ingrid Jacques talking here. Durham also called out the role of the now discredited Steele. That's discredited in case you speak English. Durham called out the role of the now discredited Steele dossier, the opposition research gathered for the Hillary Clinton campaign and was in turn given to the FBI. Durham said the dossier was unvetted and unverified, yet was used as justification for government surveillance more than once. Indeed, listen carefully here. Indeed, based on the evidence gathered in multiple exhaustive and costly federal investigations of these matters, including instant investigation, neither U.S. law enforcement nor the intelligence community appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion in their holdings at the commencement of Crossfire Hurricane. There was no probable cause. Remember, any investigation engaged by the government of the United States requires probable cause. There's no probable cause. You should be able to go to the request for a special counsel and read a treatise on what is the probable cause for this investigation. It's in the Constitution. But they rolled right past it. They rolled right past it. They ran over it. They obliterated it for the sake of politics. Neither U.S. law enforcement nor the intelligence community appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion in their holdings at the commencement of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. No probable cause. The political implications are clear. The report highlights the favoritism shown to the Clinton campaign over the Trump campaign. There it is. As Durham details, the FBI fumbled the collusion investigation, but mainstream media outlets also deserve blame for breathlessly going along with the Trump-Russia allegations. The willingness to report negative rumor about Trump is in direct contrast to how the news media has protected President Joe Biden and his family. Completely correct. For example, when the New York Post broke the Hunter Biden laptop story in October of 2020, ahead of the presidential election, the rest of the media pretty much ignored it. Twitter even suspended the Post's account for sharing its news reports. Emails from the laptop indicated Hunter Biden had used his dad's position as vice president for his personal gain. The story was slammed by Democrats in the media as Russian disinformation. Nearly 2 years later, however, news organizations outside right-leaning press finally admitted the substance of the laptop story was real. Now, the media largely ignores or downplays the findings of a GOP-led House Oversight Committee investigation that last week announced it had evidence that 9 Biden family members have allegedly received millions of dollars for no clear business purpose from foreign nationals, including entities in China and Romania. At least the allegations deserve further scrutiny. You see, that's probable cause. Suspicious incident reports from United States banks with the Biden family names all over them, and Biden family corporate entities, holding companies all over them, that's probable cause. That looks like influence peddling to us. Let's put it in front of a judge and let's see if we can go get a search warrant. That's the way the process is supposed to work. None of that happened with President Trump. That's the way the process is supposed to work. This is probable cause. There's plenty of probable cause to investigate the Bidens. No one with any idea of what American law is supposed to be, although you gotta put it this way. I mean, you can't blame somebody for being confused as to just exactly what the aim of American law right now is. Because it looks like to me the American law is being used to subdue political opposition instead of actually making this a better country. That's the way it looks to me. Is that the way it looks like to you? Is that what it looks like to you? I'm just asking. So, Ingrid Jacques says the allegations deserve further scrutiny. Imagine if these were members of the Trump family. The coverage would look vastly different, I'm sure. The American people aren't blind to blatant discrepancies, whether from the FBI or the media. And once trust is broken, it's very, very hard to rebuild. I have told you, it will take decades for the FBI to recover from this. And that's if they start doing something right this minute. But yesterday, we found out that an IRS whistleblower who's been working on Hunter Biden's case, he and his entire team were at least reassigned and probably sacked by the IRS at the request of who? The IRS Office of Professional Integrity? Oh, no. No. The entities that required the dismissal of this investigative team looking into Hunter Biden as a part of an IRS investigation. No, that was the Department of Justice. And once again, I'm not going to do your thinking for you. Does that make you trust the DOJ more or less? These are simple questions. As a matter of fact, I reduce things to simplicity. And a lot of it doesn't have to do with me coming up with stinging evidence about some strange bombshell idea that somebody did something to somebody ate a hamster right in front of little children. But enough about Ozzy Osbourne. Look. What we have to do more than anything in the entire world right this minute is we have to start thinking for ourselves. We have to start looking at what's in front of us and believing our eyes. Start listening to what's being said to us and believing our ears. Both when whoever's talking say things that we find comforting or we find disquieting. We, the people of the United States, clearly are making incredibly bad decisions. We have the wrong leadership in this nation. We have the wrong leadership in this nation, and when the American people recognized we had the wrong kind of leadership in this nation and sent somebody else to the Oval Office, the instincts of the American people were splattered in lurid detail across every possible media outlet in this nation as they tried to destroy the choice of the people to be the president of the United States. That's exactly what happened. And what did that do? It proved the instinct of the American people to be immeasurably true. These people are degenerate anti-Americans. Not all of them are Democrats. Yesterday, I was spending an awful lot of time talking about how Democrats are responsible for a lot of the bad things that are happening in this nation. And all the while inside my head, you sound partisan, you sound partisan. I wasn't being partisan. In point of fact, in the top 25 cities from a standpoint of population in the United States, one is run by a Republican mayor. One. The rest are Democrat mayors. Everybody's freaking out about the school shooting that happened in Texas or the subway murder, so to speak, because some guy was going crazy and threatening people and somebody took action. Everybody's talking about that stuff. But last weekend, 8 people died in Chicago because of gunfire. Tens of people wounded. That happens every weekend like clockwork. That's run by a Democrat administration. And what do? Oh, it's not our fault. Oh, it has nothing to do with us. It's because there are guns. We've got to get rid of guns. Congratulations, you've gotten rid of guns. How come people are still getting shot? The problem isn't criminals. The problem is, well, the crime as defined by law. We've got to do something about that. These are just misunderstood individuals. They're not horrible, terrible people. They're not criminals. This morning on Good Morning America, in one of those cities, some kid is shoplifting. Then he attacks the security guard, tells the security guard he's going to stab him to death. And before you know it, the security guard pulls his weapon and shoots him to death, shoots the kid. And everybody's going, my God, it's just petty theft. That shouldn't carry the death penalty. Well, actually, it wasn't petty theft. If the kid threatened to stab the security officer, that's assault with a deadly weapon. But they don't talk about stuff like that. So when I talk about these Democrat ideals, it's not because I'm partisan. It's because I'm truthful. These people are running us off the road. And they did everything they could to run Donald Trump off the road. And they're still trying it. At some point, this may be a turning point for USA Today. This one column may be a turning point for USA Today as they try to return to reality, truth, and fact. I do it every day. It's not hard. But the thing about it is this. President Trump is the clear front runner in the 2024 presidential campaign season of both parties. Joe Biden is sinking. If he doesn't stop, if he doesn't knock this garbage off, do you know what's going to happen? He's going to get an approval rating in the 20s. It's already down to 36%. How low does he want it to go? What are we doing? Look, we have to hire we have to hire different people. We have to elect different people. Everybody starts talking about how, my God, we need term limits in this nation. We have term limits. It's called a vote. Stop sending these people back to Washington. If you think they're stale and complacent, get rid of them. It's okay. You don't have to worry about messing up their life. If you get elected to Congress once, your current salary will be $175,000 a year. And when you leave Congress, you get $175,000 a year for the balance of your life. You're not going to hurt these people. That's why they play so rough with each other, because they know when it comes right down to it, they're going to be making $175,000 a year. They're not going to have to worry about, being able to feed themselves. So we'll just stomp all over them whenever they feel like they feel like they have to make a political move. It's basically political life insurance. This all comes down to us. We allowed the FBI to try to sunder Donald Trump. We allowed the January 6th committee to point at the January 6th rioters and call them insurrectionists, all the while completely ignoring the actual destruction, murder, terror, and mayhem that was the summer of 2020 thanks to BLM and Antifa. We're responsible for all that. We are responsible for a media that doesn't tell us the truth, because we don't require it. We don't demand it. We're slowly getting the message, but how far do we want the country to sink before we actually get that message? This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. After Marlon Brando died, it came out that he had digitized his imagery. He had digitized his face, his body, so that his estate could essentially use the intellectual property that is Marlon Brando. That being his image and likeness and his voice, etc., for other acting projects after he died. Artificial intelligence makes that ever more possible. Tom Hanks was discussing the possibility of an AI version of himself continuing to act after his death, and the morality of that on a Friday episode of the Adam Buxton podcast. Anybody can now recreate themselves at any age and are by way. Okay, here we go. Anybody can now recreate themselves at any age they are by way of AI or deepfake technology. I could be hit by a bus tomorrow and that's it, but my performances can go on and on. Hanks elaborated that aside from a project labeling a posthumous movie with him as AI, there would be nothing to tell you it's not me and me alone. And it's going to have some degree of lifelike quality. That's certainly an artistic challenge, but also a legal one. There is something good. I'm fond of saying that there's nothing in the universe that is without balance. One of the interesting things that AI represents is that AI could very quite literally make for a remaking of the American experience from a standpoint of intellectual property. You see, I give up my right to my intellectual property when I do this broadcast. Everything I say on this broadcast is in the public domain. It's perfectly open and usable by anybody. You know, it's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. But Tom Hanks, on the other hand, has unique capabilities as a human being. His acting, etc. He's very good at doing what he does. And that represents, a non-fungible token. In other words, it's not that it's a It's a tangible object. But we know when we buy our ticket to a Tom Hanks movie that it's going to be good. That is the property. So at some point, the idea that Tom Hanks could be used beyond his death for some sort of role in a movie somewhere without necessarily paying his estate could lead to suddenly all of us back in charge of our own intellectual property. We use these. Law enforcement in the United States says, well, because you use these, you give up your rights, just like I do, to anything I say on this broadcast. Give up the rights to your personal intellectual property. That is wrong. That's a convenient workaround to the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. Remember what I was just talking about, probable cause? Isn't it amazing how this show layers on top of itself as it goes on? Anyway, remember what I talked to you about probable cause? There's no reason for the government of the United States to read my texts, read my emails, listen to my phone calls. But because theoretically I have no intellectual property claim on what I'm saying, they can do anything with it they want. That is wrong. It's possible that in trying to legalize, in other words, bring law to artificial intelligence, we might be given a gift that is immeasurable from a standpoint of freedom and liberty. Our own intellectual property. We had it before. The Fourth Amendment of the Constitution said that we would be secure in our persons, our homes, our papers, and effects. This is an effect. This is mine. The information on it is mine, except that which isn't mine, which I borrow or subscribe to. But my writings, my words, my interactions, the right to freely assemble, this is mine. It is not subject to perusal by the government of the United States or any other government. And we deal with it every day. It's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely un-American. And now we find ourselves in a position where Tom Hanks is saying, I don't think I want to act in something after I've died and not get paid for it. Now, it may indeed be possible to pay the estate, which is perfectly fine. I mean, you can be paid to give up your intellectual property, as long as it's a lot of money. Because if somebody's offering you money for your intellectual property, chances are there's a very, very good reason they want it. So in other words, get all you can. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. I am John David. That's hour number 1. We've got another hour of the Wells Report coming up in just a couple of moments. Do me a favor and stay where you are. We'll be back with more of the Wells Report coming up in just a couple of moments. Our telephone number, 817-379-2172. Chat room going. Let's talk. This is the Wells Report. Okie dokie. That's all I have for this hour. I've got another hour coming up in just a couple of minutes. So stay, for goodness sakes, stay where you are. Thanks for listening to the Wells Report, more of which continues in 6 minutes. You found the Wells Report, more of which continues in 5 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. What do we do here? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary, which is not the news, just opinion, yours and mine. And that leads to debate. Share your opinion. You're welcome to. You can do it on the chat room. You can call me on the telephone, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Or you can, like I said, join the chat. All right. Okie doke. It is the Wells Report. Other things have been going on in the nation, strangely enough, and some of them having to do with politics. Remember, this broadcast reports on politics but doesn't play politics. This is interesting to me. There are problems in leftist paradise, the Green New Deal, which aims to make it impossible for you to eat the food that you grew up with, cook the food that you grew up with on the same kind of appliances that you grew up with, without, of course, providing a better alternative. All manner of things. What kind of car you drive, even though the car they want you to drive is hopelessly inefficient and a genuine pain in the tuchus. These people are disconnected from the reality of life because they're essentially insulated from it. The mainstream media doesn't stomp them into the dust whenever they do something stupid, like, say, for example, we're going to make your gas stove illegal. A few years ago, 500 people in Texas died because there wasn't enough electricity to go around. And so they killed 1,000 people. All those people are out of the electricity business, thankfully. But why were they in the electricity business to begin with? Was it because some Democrat did something stupid and ridiculous? No. No, it was because we wanted to deregulate. We wanted to privatize. We wanted to do all those things, so we did it. And immediately we got Enron, and immediately we lost 500 Texans. And now the powers that be, California has no better record when it comes to electricity. Now the powers that be want us to base our entire personal transportation on electricity when we don't have enough already. Pass. And so these people are disconnected from reality. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee canceled a vote to advance President Biden's nominee to oversee energy efficiency regulations in an unexpected last-minute change, according to Fox News. Committee Chairman Joe Manchin pulled the agenda item to consider President Biden's nomination of Jeff Marushian. I wonder how many times he was called Martian, probably all his life. Marushian to lead the Department of Energy's Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, which, by the way, goes by the acronym ERIE. E-E-R-E, ERIE. That agenda item was pulled from a scheduled meeting this morning. The committee had been slated to advance the nomination to a full floor vote, but will now just consider the 21 other agenda items. Manchin told Fox News, while I supported Mr. Marushian's nomination in December, since then the office he's been nominated to lead has proposed stove efficiency rules I've raised concerns about. That's right. Your stove is going to kill you. So we, the government of the United States, must save you from your stove. While I appreciate these rules would only apply to new stoves, my view is that it's part of a broader administration-wide effort to eliminate fossil fuels. For that reason, I'm not comfortable moving forward with Mr. Marushian at this time. Marushian was first nominated to take the helm at the ERIE office. See, these people don't think. We're electing these people. We're electing these people who hire these people to run the country. And they don't realize that they're creating a job or an agency title with the word ERIE. Yeah. Marushian was first nominated to take the helm at the ERIE office in July of 2022 after serving as a special assistant to President Biden. Prior to that role, the director of the Washington, D.C. Department of Transportation, the position had been vacant since Daniel Simmons, who led the office throughout the Trump administration, departed the DOE in early 2021. DOE Secretary Jennifer Granholm then hired Marushian as her senior advisor for energy efficiency and renewable energy in September. His confirmation hearing before the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee took place in November. He was reported out of the committee in December, but his nomination stalled at the end of the session, forcing Biden to renominate him in January. Granholm said last year Marushian would be a natural fit to lead the department's latest applied energy office and help the administration meet its bold energy goals. However, Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee ranking member John Barrasso of Wyoming opposed the nomination, saying Marushian was more qualified for a transportation department role. Since Marushian was hired to advise Granholm on energy efficiency since his nomination was returned to the White House, the DOE pursued a number of energy efficiency regulations impacting a number of household appliances, including natural gas-powered stovetops that have been criticized by consumer advocates as overreach. Overreach? It's absolutely ridiculous. Overreach. This is government oppression. It's none of their business how you cook your food. None. None of your business. And by the way, this isn't the first thing this is the first time this has happened. I don't know how it is in California right now, but there for a while there was this movement afoot after getting rid of wood-fired fireplaces. There was this movement afoot that was going to get rid of barbecues because of the smoke. That's right, the air pollution. You know, that delicious, wonderful air pollution that comes out of a smoker cooking a brisket. Yeah, apparently that's going to kill you too. No, it's not. It's going to please you incessantly. Oh, man. Texas brisket being slow cooked in a smoker. Oh, my. And so what ended up happening is that died a sudden death. This idea that these idiots are going to force us into this electrical box whereby we don't have any source of heat except an electric one. We don't have any source of transportation but an electric one. When they don't have enough electricity and won't do enough to make more electricity available to us, that's oppression. It's bordering on tyranny. They're trying to convince us that our steak is, well, it's too bougie to be believed. The bourgeoisie, my God, a life of luxury. What makes you think you're special? What makes me think I'm special? Me. Now buzz off. This is what our framers warned us of. This is why they created the government the way it is. And this one story proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that you cannot have bureaucrats hiring each other, one from the Department of Transportation, now suddenly in energy efficiency, these guys rolling around, talking to each other, trying to come up with the next great idea. We can't let that happen in a vacuum. In other words, we can't let these people just come up with regulations. These guys concocted this regulation out of thin air based on probably one too many 3 martini lunches. They concocted it out of three just out of thin air. You know, I remember when I was a little kid, I got burned on my grandma's gas stove. I still got the scar, see? Yeah. I knew a kid that had a frying pan of bacon grease spilled on his head. He had this bald spot. Little did he know that a few decades later, people would be cutting their hair to look exactly like him. Anyway, I think we ought to get rid of gas stovetops because they've got to be dangerous in some way. Okay, let's write a regulation about it. And they do, and there it is. And all of a sudden it's splattered all over the front page of the New York Post. So how do we fix it, John David? You say you're about truth and solutions. It's simple. Every single executive branch agency regulation must be subject to vote by the representatives of the United States of America. And if they say, if those people vote to get rid of your gas stoves, you know who not to vote for next time around. You see, this is a way to circumvent the Constitution as well. That's all this is. Politicians say, hey, we didn't have anything to do with this gas stove garbage. Yeah, that wasn't us. That was the EPA. You got a problem with them? Sue them. No, we're going to diselect you. What for? I didn't do anything. I didn't come up with that regulation. Right, but you didn't vote to make sure that you had a vote on that regulation. What? Exactly. Now you're just being willfully stupid. Another disqualification for public office. Bye-bye now. Every single regulatory agency regulation has got to be considered, debated, and indeed voted on by the House of Representatives and the Senate and signed by the president. This idea that these executive branch agencies can do anything they want to is un-American. It's unconstitutional. And as we've seen, these executive branch agencies are also political weapons to subdue the political opposition. That is simply the way it is. And says the Supreme Court already ruled agencies cannot make law, only Congress can. Well, that's true. But what about reality? The reality is these people came up with these regulations, their proposed regulations. And if nobody had stood up and said, what do you mean get rid of my gas stove? Are you stupid? Those regulations would slowly matriculate and ooze their way into American life until suddenly 3 years from now, what do you mean I can't buy a new gas stove? That happens all the time. That happens all the time. So making law, yeah, that's Congress. But those aren't laws. What the EPA and so on, that what they do isn't law, it's regulation. Well, what difference does that make? Well, if a regulation has the power of law, in other words, if you can be fined or jailed for violating these particular regulations, you need to be able to trace that regulation back to the congressmen and senators and president who made it a law. Don't you? This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast today. 817-379-2172. You can find us on the chat room. I'm going over there right now to see what's going on, see what's cooking, see what you're talking about, and we'll have more of this broadcast when we continue. It is Wednesday, the 17th of May, year of our Lord 2023. Man, oh man, it's May already. Have you noticed that? Actually, I have, because I live every day, man. It's been a long 5 months. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. You can also join us on the chat room. I'm going over there right this very moment. Let's see. What's going on here? We were talking a little bit about electricity being used for fossil fuel, which is patently stupid since we've seen just how badly electricity can be manipulated for political effect and for the effect of profit. You know, Susan and I had gas appliances, and during that freezing spell, I guess it was February of 2021, where 500 people died because they froze to death. Susan and I had heat because we had gas. And they're trying to take that away from us. Well, not until they do something about making sure that there's enough electricity to actually use, and certainly not until they come up with an electric car that can be refueled in 15 minutes. In order to refuel an electric car in 15 minutes, however, you have to have a gigantic load of electricity that basically melts the battery in order to recharge it. That's why you can't do it that way. Anybody that's actually tried to overcharge a battery, you notice you get that sulfur smell. That's because the battery fluid inside is boiling. See, you can only charge a battery so fast. How many hours do you want to sit at Buc-ee's or some Walmart somewhere? How many hours? You want to limit your travel per day to the amount that your car can go. For example, when we're traveling across country, we normally travel about 500 miles because that's about 8 hours of driving at about an average of 50, 55 miles an hour. You're going faster than that, but, and then what you do is you stay. Well, you go to a hotel, you plug in your car, you go to bed, you eat dinner, go to bed, and so on and so forth, wake up, get breakfast, unplug the car, and go on for another 500 miles. Well, the problem with that is, unless you have to be there, say, for example, I don't know, in 2 days and you're 1,500 miles away. There are all kinds of problems with EVs. They are lemons. And by the way, replacing military vehicles with electric vehicles? That's so funny. Let's see. By the way, in case you're wondering, submarines are electric vehicles, pretty much. Although they also use a steam plant to turn the propeller, but they've been working on this turbo electric drive for a long time, and so it's possible. It's possible. Or you can have a military vehicle that's very much like, say, for example, a locomotive. See, a locomotive is not driven by the gigantic diesel engines that they carry around with them. The locomotive is running a generator. What moves the locomotive are big electric motors. Those of us who are somewhat, shall we say, devotees of efficiency, why would we have a military vehicle whose reliability must be unquestioned? Why would we have a military vehicle that has an engine that doesn't actually drive the wheels, but instead drives a generator which drives the wheels through an electric motor? Why would we want to add all of that? How heavy do we want to make these military vehicles? Yeah. It's all about government control and the push toward communism. Well, socialism. Communism fails in about 15 minutes. Socialism takes longer. Let's see what else. I've got somebody on the chat room that calls former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo Gargoyle Head. I never thought about that until right now. Now I can't get the picture out of my mind. By the way, Mike Renouy says, "Hey JD, if submarines are powered by electricity, how do they get the solar power to the actual solar cells on top of the submarine?" That's a good question. But that's what these people want submariners to have to deal with, apparently. You're dealing with the Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just a moment. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172, 817-379-2172. People that have far too much sway in affecting the lives of Americans on a day-to-day basis are insulated from the life that they try to foist and impose on others. They don't live that way. They expect you to. The way to make that happen is to create the duality that we're currently seeing in our law. The law of the land is the law of the current leftist land, which is different. It's a different thing. If you are somebody who disagrees with the status quo ante of leftist politics in the United States, you can expect to have a really tough time in a federal courtroom. If, however, you are someone who essentially goes along with the latest ravings of the left, you'll be just fine. Or not. This is something that disturbs me greatly. I didn't go to college. I did not go to college because I did radio. There was only one real way to learn radio at that time. You had to go out and do it. It's very much like learning how to be a great rock star. There's no rock star class. You go out and you keep trying things and you keep letting your creativity lead you and your talent and your ability until you arrive or not. This is the way radio was. And so I did radio and had a great time, super career, really had a great career. And still connected, still doing this broadcast, for example. It may be on a radio station again sometime. I have been under consideration for a position someplace nearby. We'll see if it happens. But the thing about it is that you kind of live by your wits. So I didn't go to college. If I had gone to college, I doubt very sincerely that I would have been a part of a fraternity, because that's the male version of social clubs at universities, fraternities. You apply, and they do stupid things to you, and you do stupid things to them, and then you do stupid things that come to people behind. I don't play the plebe game. I never did, never will. I think it's ridiculous. I believe in meritocracy. I believe that the best should rise to the top as opposed to the ones with political connections of one kind or another. So the fraternity system and I don't get along. Likewise, I'm a little less boring when it comes to sororities because of what I know about women, which is women find comfort in clumps. In other words, women like hanging around with each other. You know, I'm not a guy that likes to hang around people on a friendly basis. This notwithstanding my fact that I'm involved in military and love my soldiers, both male and female. They're wonderful. I love hanging around with them. But typically in my personal life, eagles don't flock. I realize that sounds self-serving, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And so I happen to believe that females should be able to have places where they can go and be females and not be hassled and harried and dealt with in ways that they are not comfortable with. They need a refuge. They need a refuge. Men do too. They're called man caves. Man caves. Or the garage. Or the workshop. Or whatever you want to call them. Okay? But in college, you are going from home, hearth, high school, drama, craziness, et cetera, to college, which is either perhaps the most interesting and incredible education experience of your life or government oppression or pseudo-government oppression indoctrinating you into the way that you will think or suffer the pain of being banished. Well, there are some women in the University of Wyoming, and they are sorority sisters. The sorority is Kappa Kappa Gamma, KKG. They, along with their attorney, joined Laura Ingraham on last night on the Ingraham Angle to speak out. They have started a lawsuit over the inclusion of a transgender member. Host Laura Ingraham reported sorority members in question. Artemis Langford allegedly would sit on the sofa in a common area watching the sisters walk by for prolonged periods of time. One allegation said that Langford was seen, shall we say, ardent in his viewing through his leggings. In a statement to the Ingraham Angle, the national KKG chapter said that it is aware of the litigation and that it intends to address concerns through the legal process. While we cannot comment in detail on this pending litigation, it contains numerous false allegations. Kappa Kappa Gamma values diversity and does not discriminate based on classes protected by the state, local, or federal law. The Ingraham Angle reached out to the school and Langford, but did not receive a response. One of the plaintiff's sisters, Hannah, said she and her fellow members were shocked by the alleged events and inclusion of Langford in the sorority. Quote, I can speak for myself. I never thought this would happen to me, especially in a sorority, in a space for women. We were never told it was a unisex space. We joined under the impression it was a single-sex organization. Another sister, Geraldine, told Ingraham that there had been many uncomfortable moments in the sorority house, saying the situation proves the importance of female-only spaces. That's why we're here today. We're fighting for the importance of women's spaces and what it truly means to be a woman. We were promised from the beginning we would have a sisterhood, meaning only females. Our national sorority has failed us. It's true. It's absolutely true. Hannah said the national KKG chapter ignored the members, valued someone else over us in this uncomfortable situation. The entire world was turned on its head when back in the days of the 70s and the women's movement, the real women's movement. I don't know what the women's movement stands for now. Seems to me like they stand for drag queens, but let's just move on. They upended the entire nation and said that major universities had to spend the same amount of money on female sports programs as they do on male sports programs. And that was imposed on them from the top. It was called Title IX. It was just fine. It turned out to be just fine. But the entire country, my God, what about Title IX? Title IX this, Title IX that, so on and so on. And imperious leftists stood up and said, Title IX is, by God, a birthright. Women should have the same capabilities, same opportunities as men. Okay. But you do know that tens of thousands and thousands of tens and all kinds of thousands of people will show up for, say, for example, a men's football game. But female sports hasn't really come up with something that'll fill a 125,000 seat stadium yet. I'm not saying it won't. You know, the women's national team, the women's national soccer team did a pretty good job of filling stadiums. They were good to watch. They were fun to watch. But the Texas boys soccer team that won the state title last year would run them into the ground. And so there were realities, and those were the arguments, and so on and so forth. I think that women, especially in a college situation, ought to have the same opportunities as men. I absolutely believe so. And I happen to watch. I like watching girls softball. It's fast. It's amazing. The athleticism is undeniable. It's absolutely undeniable. But once again, there needs to be a female sport that people want to fill a 125,000 seat stadium for. And just speaking from a totally misogynistic standpoint, lingerie football isn't it. Although, I'm kidding. This idea that biological males should be able to hang with biological females in a biological female space is insane. It's absolutely insane. And to then throw it into the idea that somehow somebody is bigoted against LGBTQ people, which frankly, I'll be honest with you, none of us care about LGBTQ drama. We don't care. But what about the kids? What about the kids? Maybe you should talk to the parents. What if the parents make the wrong decision? That's none of your business. Can we move on? Look, the situation is this. If you have an Audi, you don't get to hang out in any spaces. And while people with innies might be welcome in spaces with Audi spaces, we'll get thrown in jail for it. So stay away, please. And I have to say that this is absolutely ridiculous that it even has to go to court. That Kappa Kappa Gamma cannot sit there and say, okay, this is a sorority. That means sisterhood. That means females. There are important things that happen in female and male conclaves. Male-only conclaves, female-only conclaves are important to society. This is all just insane distraction. And what's it for? It's so that somebody somewhere can stand up someplace in front of some video microphone, in front of some microphone and some video camera, and talk about how people that disagree with them are racists, bigoted, terrible human beings. And somehow these people have enough credibility to be able to pull it off against people that are sitting there going, what do you mean you're letting a biological male infest my daughter's sorority? What are you talking about? Well, if you don't like it, you can take your little daughter right out of that sorority. Thank you, I will. But I'd like all the money that we spent supporting the national sorority to be returned as well. because you signed my daughter up under false pretenses. It's fraud. The problem with all of this is, and this is something else. We know that this is a political project. We know that this is essentially just people stirring the pot. Why? Why is that? The reason is because they could simply have a transgender sorority and fraternity, although what would it be, a sorority or a fraternity? It would be a sorority. A fraternity? What would it be? It would be beta, gamma, beta, gamma, beta, gamma. Look, I'm just trying to create here. Okay. I mean, you could have transgender sport. You could have Title 10, that you would have male sport and female sport and transgender sport. You could do that. All these colleges that are saying you have got to let transgender members into your sororities or fraternities. The fraternities probably wouldn't care, but let's move on. You have to do that. I bet you they'd stop as soon as they had to spend the same amount of money on transgender sports as they spend on male sports and female sports. I bet you all that stuff would come to a screeching halt. That's how we know this is all about politics. That's how we know this is all about division. This is how we know that this is fake. You don't put men in female sports. You put transgender males or females into transgender male or female sport. That's what you do. I know, we'll call it the Human League. Oh, wait. It is total insanity. Mike says it's totally insane. It absolutely is. Yeah. They're not smart enough or allowed to have a gun, smoke a cigarette, get a drink of alcohol, get a tattoo without parental permission. They can't even get a tattoo with parental permission. But they can tear their insides out or put their insides on the outsides and their outsides on the insides without parental permission. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. Like I said, there's a solution right around the corner. Why don't we pursue it? Well, because it's much more important to stomp on society and make people feel angry and outraged instead of actually solving the problem. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Thanks for listening to the Wells Report, more of which continues in 6 minutes. You found the Wells Reports, more of which continues in 5 minutes. Hold it right there. Good God in heaven. Sorry about that. I have these little interludes that were produced for the Wells Report, and what they do is they create something for you to listen to during the breaks. Yeah, all that stuff was wiped out. James Parker, remember James Parker? Used to fill in on this broadcast a lot. The great James Parker built a whole bunch of things for us, and crazily enough, I lost them all. Actually, I didn't lose them; they were lost for me by Restream, and I don't know why they did that. Yeah. Oh, Martha, you sexist, you. Martha says, I can just see women's football. Ouch, I broke a nail. We need a timeout. You know what bothers me most about women's football? You know what bothers me the most about it? The most horrifying thing that I can think of? The cheerleaders. Whew. Oh, my God. Ugh. Yeah, that was a needle pulling off there. I used to have that sound effect. I still have it. But, you know, what's interesting about that sound effect, Mike, is that it has no basis in reality anymore. Nobody knows what that sound effect is. They don't realize that it was a needle being pulled off of a record because most people don't understand what a record is. Yeah, we're getting old is what's happening right in front of us. Speaking of getting old, I saw something today. It was an advertisement. I saw something today and I went, hey, that's great. And I'm going to show you what the advertisement is. Okay? This is the advertisement I'm talking about. It's in USA Today. Apple AirTags keep track of your keys, your wallet, and luggage. Shop this Amazon deal and save 10%. My God, you can get 4 Apple AirTags for under $90, $89, in fact, today. Yeah. This is my Ridge wallet. This is not the first Ridge wallet I've owned. This is the second one. I lost the first Ridge wallet I owned because I took it out of my pocket, I put it down and walked away from it. And so what did I do? I went without a wallet for a while because I wasn't going to allow Susan to buy me another Ridge wallet until she found this one on sale. So she bought me this one. Okay. If you'll note on the back of this, you see that round object right there? You know what that is? That is an Apple AirTag. I have one on my wallet. And the reason I have one on my wallet is because when I walk away from it, it yells at me. Not that I've walked away from it ever again. I don't. But I can tell you that these Apple AirTags are great, except for one small thing. Whenever you happen to have an iPhone and you walk around one, you get notified. There's an Apple AirTag nearby. Is it yours? Make sure whatever it is, you stop and get it. And they're really annoying. These notifications happen all the time. But I will tell you that if you've lost your keys, your wallet, your luggage, a pet, you know how annoying and scary it is. Apple AirTags help you keep track of all your valuables, make your life a little more organized. They're tracking devices. They rarely go on sale, but we found an Amazon deal that can help you save 10%. Normally $99 a Ford. Let me use my game show voice. Let me use my advertising voice. It's like my game show voice. Normally $99. A 4-pack of Apple AirTags are on sale at Amazon today for $89, a savings of 10%. Okay, somebody send me a check. If you're constantly losing your keys, wallet, or even a feline friend, in other words, your cat, unless, of course, your cat is transgender, then you'll have to think of another pronoun. What you can do is you just pair the tracker to your iPhone. In my case, I have an iPhone, and this talks to this, and this will dial you into the location to this. It's really kind of cool the way it works. I wonder if I should show it to you. Maybe I should. No, I'm not going to do that. It's a pain in the butt. Anyway, it will tell you where it is. It will lead you to your wallet. And I have to say I've used that a couple of times. The problem is what happens when you misplace your phone. You can't exactly put an Apple AirTag on your phone, can you? Well, you can use Find My on your Apple device. I've got an Apple MacBook Pro, and you can use that. And you can find your phone. Unfortunately, you can't carry your actual computer around with you, so you can get just a rough idea. I lost my house mailbox office keys a couple of years ago. I now have tags on my key ring. I came up with a solution for my keys. What I do is I have a hall tree. That's one of those cool little things where you keep your hat and your umbrella and all that stuff. And when you walk in the door, okay, I have a hall tree. And what I do is I just put my keys down on the hall tree, right? The only time I ever lose my keys is when I don't put them down on the hall tree. And so why am I telling you this? Okay, John, so what? You just did a commercial for AirTags. Are you going to get paid for it? Oh, no. I'm telling you that they work, and I'm telling you something else. It's really, really sad that I have one on my wallet. It's sort of like having a note pinned to my chest. I live at wherever I live. Please take me there immediately. It sucks. God bless you guys. I'll see you again tomorrow for another edition of the Wells Report. Until then, God bless all y'all. I had a wonderful time. I hope you did too. The news, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is